Hey guys, Raymond here from the Beginner Photography Podcast, and today's guest is you. Let's get into it. Hey guys, thank you so much for being here for this episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. And if you are listening on your phone or if you've downloaded this episode, you might realize that it's named something a little bit different. And I'm doing something a bit experimental here. So when I started this contest to give away a GoPro Hero 4, which is still going on, if you're listening to this today, December 1st, the day that this podcast comes out, you still have 3 days to enter before Monday's podcast to win. So head over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com, click the link up at the top, and sign up now. So if any of you have signed up to win the GoPro, you'll know that I asked a few questions because I really want to know more about you, the listeners, and I want to know what it is that you struggle with, because the only way to know what you're thinking, to know what you need help with, is simply to ask. And that's what I did. I asked you what you struggle with, and you told me. So this episode is all about you. But here's the thing, okay? It's kind of weird. If you've been a long-time listener to the podcast, you know and miss Callum as much as I do. And if you follow him on any of his social platforms, Facebook, his website, Instagram, you'll know that he is traveling around the United States right now to stay warm in the winter from the Great White North, where he is from, in Canada. And I feel like the show misses a little bit of back and forth, okay? So here's what I came up with. A buddy of mine who I went to high school with knows nothing about photography, but he loves the podcast. He has no interest on becoming a photographer. He is in the Coast Guard right now, and doesn't own a camera aside from his iPhone. So I thought, you know what? If I take users' questions and try to answer them in a way that Paul can understand, who has no photography knowledge and no desire to be a photographer, and if he can understand what I'm talking about, then you should too. My whole goal is to try to be as simple as possible and explain anything so that a 5-year-old can understand it. And I know that probably with the last podcast about full frame and crop sensor cameras, a lot of that got lost on you guys. And I hear ya, and I apologize. So this is my answer. I'm going to have somebody come on whenever I do a solo episode. I'm going to have Paul come on. And if there's anything where he has no idea what I'm talking about, he's going to say, what does that mean? If he's going to have questions that maybe I don't think about, that I just think, oh yeah, I assume everybody knows these things, but that's not true. Maybe you don't know these things. He is going to ask those questions. So that is it. This is going to be a short episode, because I want to keep pumping these out on the regular, on top of interview podcast. So the plan is every Monday, new podcast with an interview comes out. Every Thursday, Q&A Thursdays. That's today. So if you're listening to this for the first time, I have put up a brand new site on the website, beginnerphotographypodcast.com, where you can enter your Q&A questions. All you got to do, sign up for the podcast newsletter. So once you sign up for the podcast newsletter, there'll be a spot right there. Hey, what questions do you have about photography? And I will do my damnedest to answer them. However, I have a list. It's about 300 long right now. So this episode is not going to have 300 questions. It'll be just a handful. And if you're listening and I answer one of your questions, let me know. Give me a shout out. I would love to link your website into the show notes and help give you a boost to your photography website, SEO. Google loves that stuff, and I would love to help you out for helping me help other beginners with their photography questions. So a little bit about Paul. Paul was my best friend. He was my best man at my wedding. When I moved down to LA, he happened to be stationed in San Diego, so we were with each other a lot. And Paul is just a guy who I trust, with everything. I've known him for a long time. He's definitely one of my oldest friends, and I'm really excited to do this with him because I know how much he's excited as well. But there won't be much of an introduction with Paul because, well, he's not really into photography. But I'll ask him a few questions. So we'll just go ahead and get on into this where I answer your questions right now. Just like that, through the magic of video and audio editing, we're here with Paul. Paul, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Raymond.
So, Paul, I was just giving you a bit of an introduction before we got in here, talking about how you knew me since high school. We've known each other for, is it 13 years now? No, 14 years. It was freshman year, right? Freshman year of high school?
2002.
So we're going on
14.
Yeah, 14 years now.
Yeah.
That's nuts to think about.
It's pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. And neither of us went to our 10-year high school reunion.
I'm not going to go to that. Why would I? I'm going to go to that. Come on.
I wanted to. That was the difference. I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I knew that since we went to a high school so small that it was just going to be people who I didn't want to see, I guess.
Cut to what happened.
Cuts to
nobody showed up.
Nobody showed up. Not a single person showed up, and then they had to cancel it. So I'm kind of glad that I didn't go, I guess.
Yeah.
I was actually on vacation. You were the one who gave me the call, who said, nope, high school reunion was canceled. Mm-hmm. It's terrible.
I was following it on breaking Facebook news.
It was trending.
I was tracking that beast.
Hilarious.
All right.
So, yeah. Well, Paul, why don't you let everybody know where you're from and what you do?
Well, I'm from beautiful Sonoma County, California.
Like that Guy Fieri guy.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's got a charismatic kind of thing about him, doesn't he? He's pretty cool. So, grew up in the Bay Area with Raymond. What do I do? Man, so many ways to describe it. I'm a civil servant. Let's just say that.
Protecting our borders.
Yeah, and our country and all that fun stuff that goes with it. But I have zero experience with photography.
Yeah, and that is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. This was actually your idea because you listened to the podcast, which I thought was weird. The first time you told me that you listened to it, I was like, you? You listen to it? Okay. I appreciate it, but I thought that it was just one of those like pity, like, oh, my friend's doing something new. Let me check this out. But you continued to listen to it.
Yeah, like I listened to one today at work, and then I think I listened to one yesterday.
And it was when you'd call me out of the blue, and I'd be like, oh, Paul's calling. What's up? And you'd be like, so what does shutter speed have to do with it? And I was like, oh, okay. Clearly there's some sort of disconnect there where I'm not getting through to beginners in the way that I'd hoped. Because my hope is that I could explain anything to a 5-year-old and make a 5-year-old understand it. And I guess I don't know if it's one of those things like you do a lot of welding at work, and I'm sometimes you talk to me, I'm like, yeah, TIG and MIG and whatever else, and it's
polarity.
Like, yeah, see these phrases are common to you, and like you just say these things, and you just don't think that other people don't understand them because they're such like normal words in your vocabulary. And I think that the same thing is happening to me, and I really want to make sure that everybody understands what it is that I'm talking about. So you're going to be here to police me.
Yes, I like that. But a good example is. Who was the gentleman you had from Oklahoma?
Are you putting me on the spot? Benny Oscar. So he goes,
yeah. So when you were talking to him, you guys were using the term flash. For about half of that podcast, I thought you were talking about Adobe Flash because you weren't saying the Flash or using a Flash. You were just saying Flash. So I was like, man, I didn't even think you could do it like that, but I guess you can. These guys are really like serious about it. So
that's hilarious. So you thought that like the same application that's used for like animation and stuff, you thought we were using in our photography. Like
I was like, how do they? I've never seen this. I'm gonna have to pull over like Raymond said and Google this guy real quick and see what's going on.
And you're like, oh, a flash.
Oh, a flash. That makes a heck of a lot more sense.
See, see, it's stuff like that. It's stuff
Yeah.
like that. You are the sail in my wind. No, you're
Wind
the
it.
wind in my sails.
You're the wind
Right?
beneath my wings.
I think that's how it goes. So, I have a newsletter for the podcast, and in it, when you sign up, there's a spot where you can ask what it is that you struggle with in photography. So you have in front of you a list of about a half a dozen or so questions that you are going to ask me. I'm going to answer them. And then if you have any questions whatsoever, I'm hoping that you have the beginner's mind in your head.
Hmm.
You're going to ask me to clarify or ask clarifying questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm gonna hold your feet to the fire on this one, Raymond.
Let's do
There's gonna be
this.
no wiggling. All right,
We're getting
out of
we're
the
getting straight into this.
out of the gate.
Okay.
Will, has got a question.
Yes.
I've been shooting for over 2 years, but I still struggle to afford new gear.
So he obviously wants more gear. Okay, so that makes sense.
I'm gonna take it as he has a film camera and he wants a digital camera.
It sounds more like a statement than a question, but I understand it. So, you know, when you first get started and you have like an entry level camera. So say you go to Costco or Walmart and you buy a Canon T4i or Nikon D7200 or something.
Okay, slow back down.
Those are just models of cameras. So
when I'm at Target and I see the row of cameras and it's like the little slim ones to the one with the lens you
interchangeable
can
lenses.
adjust. Yeah, okay. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, those are literally like the most like entry level of those cameras. So those are the most like basic entry level DSLR cameras, digital cameras.
What does DSLR stand for?
DSLR is digital single lens reflex. So the 35 millimeter camera, it has the if you're watching on YouTube right here, it has the shutter. Can you see it? Let's see if we can get a little bit closer. See how the mirror goes?
Yep, got
kind of
it.
flip like that. That is a single lens reflex camera, and then just the fact that it has a digital sensor behind it makes it a DSLR. So when you go to Walmart or Target, they're not going to have like the pro versions of these cameras. Think about it like I'll put it into a term that should be pretty easy to understand. Chevy sells cars, right? They sell a lot of cars.
Yeah.
They have a $12,000 Chevy Cruze, and then they have a $30,000 Chevy Malibu, and then they also have like a $90,000 Corvette, right? All of them drive. They all do the same thing. They're going to take you from point A to point B, but it's things like build quality and some of the features that differentiate all those cars from one another and determine the price point, right? So when you start out, you're going to buy the Chevy Cruze, right? You're going to buy something that's economical. It's going to get you from A to B, and it's still going to work for you. But the more that you progress, you're like, ooh, you know what? I had another kid. Time to get that Malibu, But unfortunately, that Malibu is double the price. And then when you go professional, it's like, I can't be taking a Malibu to the racetrack. I got to get a Corvette. So now you're spending $90,000. But that jump from $15,000 to $90,000 is huge. And when you're first starting out, you're like, how does anybody afford that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing is that with photography, it is a hobby, but it can be a hobby. It can also be a profession. So when it's still a hobby, you're not going to need the professional. You're not going to need the Corvette. You're not going to need the Canon 5D Mark III. You're not going to need that full frame camera, because the Malibu or the Chevy Cruze is going to do you more than fine. But being able to afford those things, sometimes it's just, unfortunately, it just comes down to saving. And luckily, photography is a hobby that can pay for itself. There's so many people out there who, email me who are just hobbyists, right? This is just their hobby. It's their passion. And yet it pays for itself. They have no intention of it being a business, but they like new gear. They like lenses and stuff. So they just make photography pay for itself.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up for Will.
Yeah.
How important is new gear? If I'm talking bag, flash, lenses, that kind of stuff, to refurbished or secondhand?
I'll tell you the truth. I have only bought one brand new camera. Every other camera that I've ever owned has been used. Because if you think about it, if you have like a really nice camera, you're going to take care of that. Like, you're really going to baby it. Like, you're going to put it in this nice special bag. You're going to like clean the sensor and like the lens every day. And you're going to make sure that it doesn't, go out when it's too cold or rainy. And because of that, I am very comfortable buying secondhand gear. Luckily, I've never been burned. You have to, do your due diligence, check out the photos. If there's anything that you're questionable about, ask for a close-up or something like that, because it is a big expense. But I have only bought, like I said, one brand new camera. And even that, it was like, I think it was 2 years ago, it was a Black Friday sale, and it was actually cheaper than buying a used version of the same camera. And that was the only reason why I did it. The next camera that I buy will be new because it is so new, and I don't think that I'll be able to find a used version of it. But that's it. Honestly, things like bags, always buy them used. Things like flashes I buy new because they're cheap enough. They're like $60 or $70, And when you use it all the time, compared to a $400 Canon flash, it's cheap enough that I just buy it new. And flashes are something that they might fall out of your hand, and there's no sense in saving like $15 to buy it used when who knows what could have happened to it.
Okay, and one more thing on Will's question. I don't want to dwell on this, but I'm seeing it in a new way. What if he's saying he's a business owner like yourself, and for 2 years and he's still struggling? So now it's a business question, Raymond.
Yeah, I mean, that unfortunately just is something that is going to be more about business. Like, unless I really know the specifics, it's hard to answer that question. I can't tell where your business is hemorrhaging money or how you're not making enough money, because a lot of times it doesn't even come down to photography. Maybe you're just not marketing yourself correctly. Maybe you're marketing yourself correctly, but to the wrong people, and nobody's buying your services. And if people aren't buying your services, then you're not saving up enough money, and then you can't afford the new gear. But honestly, I think that if it is just your hobby, it doesn't really matter what camera and lens you have. It's important to remember that people aren't going to realize, like, nobody is going to look at you and be like, is that a T3i? I thought you were a professional. Where's your Canon 5D Mark III? Like, that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And because of that, I think it's important to just be confident in your gear. As long as you know it forward and backwards, that's going to give you a huge leg up when it is time to upgrade. But just take it out there and shoot. Let everybody know that you're a photographer and that your services are available, and just save every penny.
All right. This one, I don't want you to float away on us, but how do you come up with creative ideas for your photos of the day? That's from Catherine.
Thanks,
a little
Catherine.
Kudos to Raymond.
Thanks, Catherine. My NPR voice right there. How do you come up with creative ideas for your photos of the day? I don't know if this means like posting photos. I've talked about posting a photo every single day on the podcast. I don't know if I've talked about, but however, there is like a photo of the day challenge. Like on Instagram, they do like every day of the month. On March 1st, post a self-portrait. On March 2nd, post a picture of where you eat breakfast, and things like that. So every day of the month, you have to take and post a new picture of whatever the subject is. If that's the case, repetition. If that's what you're doing, if you're on Instagram and you see a photo of the day challenge, download it or screenshot it, and just do it every day. I mean, in the beginning, take a self-portrait. Okay, I'll just take a selfie. Don't put in too much effort into it. Don't put a lot of thought into what it is that you're doing. Get to a point to where it's just kind of fun. And then once it's fun, it'll slowly start to become boring. And then that's when you need to stretch your ideas. Okay, how many times can I take a photo of myself in a mirror? What if I took a photo of myself in the reflection of a puddle? Or what if I, press the self timer and then let go of my phone and, have it take a picture while it's falling?
And I hope you have insurance.
Well,
your wife isn't going to get mad at you for breaking your phone. I don't think that's a good idea, Raymond.
Do that over the carpet.
Okay.
Do something smart. Do it while you're on your bed. But doing something like that, that is how I would be creative about it. Just try to think of, a lot of times I go to engagement sessions and like I'll Google a location before I show up. Like, oh, I've never been to this park. Let's see what photos are taken at this park. And I'll look at 2 or 3 blogs of engagement sessions that were taken at that park, and I'll realize like, oh, everybody takes these exact same 4 photos. Make a mental note to not take those 4 photos. And then when I show up, I have to, force myself to just take something that I wouldn't normally take. So if the photo of the day is, where do you eat breakfast? Don't just like stand up, take a picture of it from like 4 feet away and be like, I don't know, this is it. Think of something different. Even something just as simple as taking that exact same photo, but holding up the box of cereal in your hand and then taking the picture. You're going to get context of, oh, it's a table and somebody has cereal. Oh, they're about to eat breakfast. Just trying to bring more context into your photos and not doing the norm. That's what I would do.
All right. The next question is finding a balance between learning and practicing.
So this is something that I definitely struggled with when I first started because...
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Before you get yourself carried away there. When you're saying when you first started with your business or with your love of picture taking?
That's a good question. I guess when I first started really getting serious, like, ooh, I really like this. I like what I think it really started when I started watching YouTube tutorials. There were things that I didn't know what to do, and therefore I just watched YouTube tutorials, and then I thought, man, that is really cool. I want to get out there and try it. But there's certain things, with me specifically, it was like stuff with Flash. Flash.
All right, there we go. I was like...
a Flash. And using it off of my camera. So triggering it with a radio trigger so that I can put my flash in a tree and it'll illuminate something else. It doesn't have to be on top of my camera. And when I was, learning about that sort of stuff, I got really excited and passionate and that I really wanted to try it. Unfortunately, it's hard to, put a flash somewhere, set your camera up on a tripod, set a timer, and manually set the focus to wherever you're going to be because, you might change and then you might be out of focus. So a lot of times I just didn't do it. On top of that, my wife was very pregnant, and I think it was actually right after we had our first child. So Charlie's 4 now. So it was very hard to find my own time to go out on my own and just try new photography things. But I think cameras are small enough nowadays, unless you have like a full-size camera like this. Something like this, like a Canon 70D, isn't going to just fit in your pocket. But you have a cell phone. You have a phone. Really practice with the composition of your photos. So what I mean by that is that when you open up your camera app, you should see those 3 lines right there. And those are the lines for the rule of thirds. So as you can see, myself on this side of the frame is more interesting than me just right in the center. Right in the center, it's kind of boring. Me right off to this side, it's like, oh, maybe he's looking at that painting right there in the background. You know what I mean? It just, finding new compositions doesn't require you to bring along your camera with you, as long as you have a phone. So you can always be practicing. And if if you have a purse or if you have a backpack that you can just throw your camera in, bring the camera with you everywhere that you go, and just hold it. Even if you don't take any photos, just hold the camera, because eventually you're going to get so used to holding the camera that, well, then you're going to start taking pictures with it. And then once you start taking a lot of pictures with it, that's when you're going to be practicing or be more open to practice new techniques.
Good answer. I didn't know. I don't think my phone has that rule of thirds line.
It should. I don't have an iPhone anymore, but
it also doesn't catch on fire. For me.
Oh man, that was a good burn.
Kara asks, how can I find more photography business in my small town? I think you can relate to this one, Raymond.
I can relate to this one, Paul. Thank you very much. I
Well,
I brand myself as an Indianapolis wedding photographer, but I actually live about 45 minutes from Indianapolis. And the reason is I live in a very small town. And it doesn't make sense for me to only work here in my small town.
in your small town, do you mean population or um, square mileage?
Population, because square miles aren't going to hire you. It's all about the amount of people who are in your town. But I also think that you'd be pretty surprised at how many people do want photography. It's just that obviously the larger the population, the more you can niche down your ideal client. You know what I mean? So if you live in a small town, then I mean, that's unfortunate. But one thing that I would do is, see how far away the closest metropolitan area is to you. Just look at an online search, interactive population maps or something online, and then it should show up something like Google Maps, and then an overlay of population based on square mileage, I guess. So then, even if you think, oh yeah, that town next to us is equally as small, you might be wrong. The next town over might be the same size square mileage wise, but it really has double the amount of people. And even if it's not a large metropolitan area, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Chicago, Orlando, what have you, it could open up your opportunity for more clients. And just remember, you always have to think about who it is that you're marketing to, who is your ideal client. So if you just say, I'm a photographer, that's not really singing anybody's song. You know what I mean? If you're like, I'm a wedding photographer for only super cheesy couples who don't mind having a laugh at their own expense. Suddenly a couple who's like, oh my God, we go out, we're super cheesy, and we do the dumbest things together just to get, a laugh out of each other. They're going to be like, this is the photographer for us. We want this person. And, you're both photographers. So it's just coming up with who you are and what it is that you do best is going to increase your chances. But really look into Facebook ads. Facebook ads, I think, is huge. It is huge for me. People get mad at Facebook ads because they say that it's too expensive, but that's an entirely different episode that we can get into that. I don't think it's expensive. I think that it is an incredibly great deal for whatever it is that you're paying for. But yeah, let everybody know what it is that you do. Post something on Facebook. Hey guys, I really want to get into photography. I'm really trying to do this full time. If you or anybody that you know needs a photographer, point them in my direction. I'd be more than happy to help. When people can't hire you if they don't know what it is that you do. So first step, let everybody know what it is that you do. And step 2, reach out to people. Don't be shy. If you just see, if you're at the park and you see a cute couple or you see like a nice family, like stop them. Be like, hey guys, I know that this is weird, but I'm a photographer and you guys just look really good. In this background, the light today looks great. Can I just take one photo of you? And then email that photo to them. Don't charge them anything. They're going to be so impressed. Like, wow, like this guy was super nice. We're going to refer him to all of our friends. And even if that books you 1 or 2 extra clients, that's 1 or 2 extra clients that you didn't have and more potential referrals. So let everybody know what it is that you do and step out of your comfort zone. Don't be shy.
Okay. Next one from Sin. Maybe Cindy or Cinderella. Camera settings aren't my problem. Seeing the moment and applying what I know is the problem. So let me see if I can understand what she's saying. They see that their child is going to do something awesome at the park, and they know that they need to. I know that there is a sports mode on cameras, so I'm going to put on sports mode. But then they're like, wait, what if this is not a sports mode? Kids already jumped off the playground, and they're already onto the swing set. You know what I mean? That hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
How can they address the hesitation?
Sin says that their camera settings aren't the problem. So I'm going to assume that they shoot manual. I'm going to assume that they independently choose their own aperture, their ISO, and their shutter speed.
Aperture is.
The amount of light that you let in the lens.
ISO is.
How sensitive your digital sensor is to the amount of light coming in.
And what was the last one you said?
Shutter speed, which
Okay,
self-explanatory,
I got that one.
controls how long the light comes through the lens. But what was that last part?
The hesitation.
Hesitation. Okay. No, seeing the moment and applying
what they know. So being confident in their abilities to shoot manual.
Right. See, I kind of take this one in a little different. I don't think that it is that they have a problem shooting manual, as they say that the camera settings are the problem. I take this as seeing the moment and applying what I know. So, one thing that will really set you apart from other photographers is not looking at your subject. Say you're taking a picture of your kid. Don't look at your kid. Look at the background. Look at the background of your kid, because that is going to make something interesting. Always look for like leading lines that will draw your eye in towards the kid, or something that'll isolate them. Maybe they're in front of a window, and that window is, it's all white because you're indoors and everything outside is much brighter, and they will be a silhouette, right? It sounds like he knows how to capture those settings. It's just making something, I'm going out on a limb here, something like artistic, or seeing that something is about to happen, and like not noticing the flow, I guess, of what's happening, not being able to predict what's about to happen, and that just all comes with practice. Honestly, I mean, that comes with getting out and shooting more. Really, I want you to go out and not pay attention to your subject. Honestly, only pay attention to the background. Look at where they're standing and look at whatever it is that is behind them, because there's a lot of times where, I'll look at a photo and I'll know immediately that it's from, an amateur, because there's like a branch in the background. We're going right through somebody's head and it just looks very distracting. And you really want clean lines. So practice. Try to get inspiration from other photographers and figure out why it is that you like a photo. Don't just say, oh yeah, that's a good photo. Okay, keep scrolling. Look at a photo and be like, wow, that's a good photo. Why is this a good photo? Like, try to pick it apart. Say, is it just a nice silhouette? Okay, why is it a good silhouette? Are they like isolated in this sea of just like white, or are they lit very well? And if so, where's that light coming from? Like, you're really creating something with photography, unless you're a photojournalist, in which case you're still creating something. It's just something that's currently happening, and that takes a lot more work than people understand. So really try to look at something and try to create something out of it. And that just comes with practice.
Okay. Then Megan, I have a hard time getting away from my auto settings. I often worried that if I switch to manual and adjust, I'll miss the moment.
Short answer is yeah, you will. You will miss the moment.
Okay, Raymond, is it
that.
worth taking a photo that's not good with the wrong settings, or missing the moment completely?
It's missing the moment for sure. It's worse to miss the moment. However, auto settings are only going to get you so far. So when I'm going to put this analogy to sports, you really want to, like, you really enjoy playing basketball. You really love it, and you really want to get better. But I mean, right now, like, you're a pretty good dude on your, pickup games, but you really want to take it to the next level. How do you do that? You can't just like be the best dude at a pickup game to be in the professional level. Like, you have to work on it. You have to get better. So, the short answer is, if you've never shot manual before, and then you put your camera in manual, yeah, you're going to miss some moments for sure. Absolutely. But the amount of extra control that you have, seeing how your camera makes decisions, how it works, and being able to change those decisions on your own instead of letting the camera make them, along with practice, is eventually going to make you, I mean, just think about this. So many people shoot manual. So many people shoot like full manual. If you were missing every single shot, nobody would be shooting manual. It's just something where you're going to get better at it with time. And the more time that you put into it, the better that you're going to get. So while you're at home, take pictures around the house. And remember that not every photo needs to be adjusted manually. When you're at a wedding, let me take this back. When I'm at an engagement session, I rarely ever almost change any of my settings. I'm outside. The amount of light is consistent if I stand right here or if I stand over there. I might change just a little bit of my shutter speed depending on my own personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer, but basically my settings stay the same the majority of the time. So I think when people first start getting into manual, they think, oh no, like I have to change my settings for every single shot. How do I know what's right and what's wrong? Well, you know that it's right because it's properly exposed. It's not too bright. It's not too dark. That's it. It's all up to your personal taste. And you're not changing your settings for every shot. You're just making adjustments as you need to. That's all that I do. I don't stop and like look at a couple and be like, okay, there's an f2, probably 1/250th of a second at ISO 400. Okay, I'm gonna take the shot. Nailed it. Okay, let's walk over here.
You know what? You'd sound like a true professional if you started talking to yourself like that.
No, that'd be horrible.
Like mumbling, like, okay, so you know what, Raymond, what are you doing? Raymond, pull it together, Raymond. Pull it together, Raymond. I'm sorry, guys. You guys are great.
I'm having an inner conflict with myself.
Yeah.
See,
I just don't know how fast I want this shutter to pop off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true professional right there. I just don't know. I
Talk to myself.
No, I don't know. I'm just gonna leave. You see?
Do you have an iPhone I can use?
It has automatic settings. I can go ahead and choose for you. No, honestly, just start doing it. Just get out there and just do it, and you're gonna get better, Megan. I promise.
All right, this one comes from a lot of listeners about editing. Make their editing consistency, editing their photos where they can be proud of them, so that editing, I would just say, is a big concern for people, and I can understand that.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never done it, but I feel it.
I think that when I first started, that was the hardest thing for me to understand is what am I doing when I'm editing something? I know that I can take a photo in to Lightroom and adjust all these sliders and make it look kind of crazy, but like, what am I doing this for? Like, I didn't understand that part. And the reason why is because there's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong answer to editing. Editing is 100% to your discretion. You can edit however you want to. You can edit all your photos in black and white. You can edit all of your photos completely black. You can edit every single one of your photos so that there's this crazy white vignette around your photos. What you're doing when you're editing is you're just putting the final touches on a photo. Or, maybe you're just going crazy and you're completely redesigning a photo that you saw in your head. But the way that I see it is that I'm just making minor tweaks to my photos to enhance them. So I want to do everything that I can to get the photo right in camera. And then when I bring it into Lightroom, I just put my signature on it, right? Like, this is a Raymond Hatfield photo.
Like your watermark. Okay.
Well, yes,
so nobody
and no.
can,
Actually, I don't really use a watermark. What I mean is just like by looking at the color consistency of my editing. If you go through and you pick out like, oh, okay, here's one photo from an engagement session. I'm going to increase the brightness, increase the vibrancy, decrease the contrast just a tiny bit, and then up the white balance. All right. I like it. Next photo. I'm going to increase the exposure. And then you go through those exact same edits every single time. Like, you're just wasting your time. So
hey,
step
Raymond,
one is...
I got a question, though.
Yeah.
Because I've heard you talk about this before. Like, how many photos do you think you take at a wedding?
How many photos do I take or how many photos do I deliver?
Do you take?
Probably in the neighborhood of 2,000.
So out of those 2,000 photos... Do you go through how many times will you go through deleting photos that you know you're not going to edit?
Technically just once. It's when I first get all the photos onto my computer. I open up a program, and then I just look at every single photo. And every photo that I like, I give it a star. Every photo that I don't like, I just bypass it. So that way, I'm only picking out my most favorite photos to import. And then it's typically only 600 or 700 out of those 2,000.
And then you edit
them,
all 600 or 700?
Yep. Out of that 600 or 700, all of those get edited. But again,
ridiculous.
Editing isn't and shouldn't be, if you don't want it to be, a labor-intensive process. The photo should be 95% of the way done once you put it in your computer. Editing is only that last 5%. Tweaking colors to the way that you like them. You know, I like greens. I like my green. I don't like them minty, and I don't like them airy. I like them slightly more saturated than what comes right out of the camera. And I find that a lot of other photographers don't like that. So that's kind of like my signature. Like my greens, I think, are my signature. And figuring out what it is that you like. That's all that editing is figuring out how you like a photo. Look at a photo. Do you like it? Yeah, all right, it's done. That's it. Once again, practice. The more that you do something, the better that you're going to get at editing, the faster that you're going to get with editing. But speaking of being fast at editing, I have created Lightroom Presets because that is the number one thing that people say is such a pain for them, is how long it takes to edit. And these Lightroom Presets save so much time. And all that they do is just make... When you finish a photo, it should be 95% done in camera. These presets, give it another 3%, and then you finish it off with the last 2%. And those are just minor adjustments to make sure that everything isn't wildly off. And those can be found at the beginnerphotographypodcast.com's website. And that's it.
Awesome. Those are good answers, Raymond.
I appreciate that.
I feel like I did learn.
Well, Paul, if that is all the questions that we got today, I appreciate your time, and I can't wait for next Thursday when you're
Me too,
back
Raymond.
with more questions.
Oh, I'm excited. Also, challenge Stump Raymond. See who comes up with the hardest question.
Oh, my God.
Who can make you take a second and go, that's a really good question.
Let's hear it. Guys, if you want to know the answer, or if you have a question that you think is going to stump me, head over to the Beginner Photo Podcast Instagram, find any photo, leave a comment of whatever you think the question should be for Q&A Thursday.
Awesome.
Paul, I appreciate your time, and once again, I can't wait for next week's questions.
Me too.
See ya. Again, guys, I hope that you liked this really short episode of the podcast. All Q&As, all from you, the people who matter most. So... until Monday, remember, guys, we're going to be announcing the winner of the GoPro Hero 4. So this is your last chance. If you want to enter, head over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com right now. And up at the top, enter by clicking the link at the top of the page. Until next week, guys, keep shooting. Later.